Olha, a Érica me encarregou de lembrar.
Good morning, everyone. And I would like to remind you that this evening you are going to wear casual clothes. What I'm saying is that you don't have to wear a tie or a suit. If you don't have jeans, you can wear something else, but no ties or jackets. Good morning. We are starting our first plenary. I would like to invite Dr. Gabriel Leonardos, president of ABPI. Dr. Pedro Eduardo Simenses, Vice President of ABPI. Dr. Julio Castelo Branco, President of INPI. Dr. Juliana PIres, Director of the Policies of Intellectual Property in the Ministry of Culture, Trade and Services. Good morning, everyone. I hope you have recovered from our cocktail last night and inspired by the talk by Miss Crystal Washington that we all enjoyed very much. Those of you who are online, good morning. I would like to apologize for being a bit late. I hope tomorrow we won't have any tardiness, but as we are going this evening to the Pão de Açúcar, perhaps tomorrow we are going to be a bit late also. This is just to provoke your envy. For those who are online, we are going to discuss here current affairs. I would like to thank our invitees, Dr. Juliana, Dr. Julio. I would like to introduce Dr. Juliana, and then I would like you to be brief in your questions. Avoid having parallel discourses. You all are brilliant. Like Crystal Washington said yesterday, you have lots to say, but please be candidates to present in future congresses. But today we have very direct questions for Dr. Juliana. Kind questions, please, because if they are not, I'm not going to accept them. Dr. Juliana is director of the Institute of Intellectual Projects. She worked in the Secretariat of International Trade. She is coordinator of barriers to exports. She worked with regulations and barriers for trade and good practices in the area. She was also in the Anvisa and in the government of the Federal District. She is a lawyer from the University of Brasilia. You have a very rich CV. I think that you must have very interesting stories to tell, but don't tell them today as to commercial barriers that are disguised as regulating barriers. And we suffer a lot from that in Brazil. We would like to hear you. You can come to the podium or you can talk from your chair. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm here for the first time in such a renowned Congress with professionals who are recognized internationally. I would like to welcome and tell you that our ministry thanks you for the opportunity of sharing our work. We have been working with not only ABPI, INPI, and other agencies. We are coordinated and we work together and share our work. And we have to do that because we have multiple actors working in the area. I would like to thank you on behalf of the Ministry and the Secretariat. And I would like to show you some slides. I would like to start sharing with you some of the institutional changes that we have was not present beforehand, and the Secretariat also wasn't there beforehand. And the idea of creating that I'm going to follow my computer screen then, if we can't project it. It's an informal talk. It's not a technical presentation at all. And later on, you will have the slides. Well, the idea was to share the institutional change. The Secretariat of Regulatory Policies has a transversal bias. It is a secretariat that is driven by competitiveness. And we have an open dialogue in the ministry with all the secretariats. And we also articulate inter-ministries and the academic sector, consumers, productive sectors, because the agenda is very encompassing. In SCPR, we have 3 departments. The first one used to be there in the Ministry of Economics, and it used to work and still works to regulate infrastructure and improve the business environment. There is another department for regulatory policies. All the commitments related to applying the tools of good regulating practice by the Brazilian federal government is the responsibility of the this department, DRE. You must have been following this idea. We had a negotiation, or 2 negotiations rather, in Mercosur and Brazil-Chile, and an agreement that was binding with the U.S. that has been adopted by Brazil, and it's ongoing. So today, this is within another department, but there is an open dialogue between this department and intellectual property and the structure of quality. This axis is very important for our daily work because it is relevant in terms of transparency and also judicial safety. SCPR to promote competitiveness in the productive sector through regulations. We want to have a modern industrial policy having IP as a strategic tool. And we say this over and over, IP as strategic tool for industrial policies. We have to disseminate good regulatory practices. There is a mission so that not only the government applies that, but civil society and everybody else uses these tools. And I'm going to mention some of them. Vis-a-vis intellectual property. To reduce the Brazil cost is another agenda that is under the responsibility of SCPR. And also we know that intellectual property and the Brazil cost is very important to be reduced. We want also to have a national strategy of infrastructure of quality. It's another mission of ours, based on the experience of INPI that is under GP. But those systems, it's important to say that they are there because we have to articulate all the interests in engaging and contributing amongst the different actors or stakeholders. As about our Congress, IP as an inductor of social equality. We know that it is a priority to have this kind of agenda of social equality in the current government. And this permeates all the ministries and all the agencies and policies linked to them. Our role as IP is the same. We have the access of IP, and we have a concern, and also we are present whenever we talk, and our minister, Vice President Alckmin, we don't see IP as an end in itself, but as a means so that we have generation of income for our society. It is a strategical tool in public policies, IP, because that is not only in our agenda as industry, although as industry, sustainability and green economy is in Brazilian companies, and this is not something separate for us. We want that other public policies incorporate IP to get to its goals so that our missions are fulfilled. It is our duty and obligation to convince people we have to think about IP as a strategical tool. It's not something far away from industrial reality. And when we talk to other people, and I have a good team that works with Julio. We have been working together in the last 5 weeks, and it's an intergovernment talk about that. Some actors, even in the government, are waking to the fact that IP are important to public policies, that they have to formulate and review. Our end concern is when we want to promote social equality, we talk about generating income and jobs. We are talking about generating jobs and income from basic education and the understanding of IP, and this must be part of education and professional activities. I would like to apologize if I don't follow the slide, but it's important to share with you our daily experience when we talk to the ministry, in this case the Ministry of Education, and we could awaken an interest from people in basic education for the agenda that we were offering. And the president came to the meeting and offered all the tools so that we could train professors and teachers. Not only IP in schools is a success, but we have to train teachers, because the teachers can transmit the relevance and importance of IP to our students. It is the teacher that can lead projects from the beginning, from basic education, so those students can develop technology in our country. So it's very interesting to be able to engage new actors, and they are very relevant, so that we can change the current numbers that we still have in Brazil vis-a-vis the number of social equality. We have to see IP as a tool for development. When we look at, as we build the national strategy for IP, in the governance forum with the PP participation, that is the group that we have, when the strategy was designed, it was designed based off pulverized actions that were not continuous and not systemic. And sometimes they were duplicated, and there was no synergy amongst the different programs and projects. We didn't have good communication, and there was lack of an organized governance, a systemic one that could provide, as time went by, and the strategy, the horizon was 10 years, which is not a practice that we have at the federal government, to work in policies looking ahead in a longer period of time. This is an innovation in itself, and this was present from the very beginning, looking at IP and its contribution to the development.
And why do we say that? I've made some comments, but I would like to do it again in regards to the contributions to the business environment, like legal safety and enforceability that creates investments. We have to design things in a way that we can have investments that are consistent in IP, so that we can generate new technologies, so that we can create innovation, and also for including these innovations in the market, which is another challenge we have in Brazil. We have excellent researchers, many contributions, but not always that converts into something new in the market as we need to have. This is one of the projects that we have to work more strongly now with a partnership with many actors, and we need to be able to do this conversion to make it happen, and again contribute to, so that our academic environment and science and technology environment can look at research and market and deliberated society that moves us forward in all our negotiations with the government. So when we talk about sustainability, I'm going to lead this topic more towards the end of my presentation, and we'd like to talk about the MCDI's role as that institution that will generate the guidelines for the industrial policy in Brazil, and we have been part of this discussion intensively, and that is to be able to find development through IP in those areas that we consider to be a priority. On the other hand, we have to think about inclusion and equality and IT and regional development. We have some initiatives regarding to collective brands that have been really praised and that can also be increased, widened, and spread out, because you make the difference, regionally speaking, contributing to the regional development. You contribute with the engagement of some individuals or small groups, disseminating your brand and reaching markets through this dissemination as well. So we are able in these communities to work as well sustainability. So we say that a good example of that is Fono Fe, which is a collective brand project with engagement from other partners as well. Some of them are present here, and that is crucial, mainly in those regions that are not in the southeast of the country. So we have to bring more of this kind of IT content and new possibilities of applying IT to such communities. So we have to think about geographic locations as well, working with that, creating a differential, a niche, an added value, consequently to a differentiated price as well, and the return of that to society in terms of investment. So in Brazil, we have been we've just begun doing that, but we have to make bigger steps in terms of disseminating the IG's protection. There is a success case that has been talked about here before about the kind of cheese that they have in the state of Minas Gerais called canastra cheese, where we created an immersion with the INPI and in Metro, our two supervisors institutions, to bring even more of this kind of success case together with some policymakers and the government and INPI, working with all those technical aspects. So we need to have a little bit more space to do that, and we've been able to work in a way that is even more integrated. That is important. Brasilia is in the center of the country, and we don't want to solve things and deal with it, including the patent. So that is a challenge. We have to intensify and disseminate the use of the IP rights, and at the same time work for this protection in the market. And in terms of priorities of the PI agenda, which is IP agenda that we have to command here, I would like to suggest some topics. The first one is the one that is more strong, that's the strongest in the media. It's been famous since the first time that our vice president made his discourse here. So we've heard some comments about that. And throughout time, we've been seeing a demand to us, the monitoring of the works together with Dr. Julio, and Julia as well routinely has been working with us in Brasilia to do the follow-up and development, and at the same time presenting their demands for the execution of reduction of the time of analysis for the patents. So we have a concern in regard to that time and for the decisions when it comes to the processes. And we have the goal, a 2-year goal, beginning with the deposit, beginning with the filing, working together with Dr. Julio in the assessment of alternatives to that goal that has been established by our Vice President, Mr. Alckmin. So we have 3.5 years to use, and we have to, so in average, some technological areas we have a little bit more time than that, but the efforts should be coordinated in such manner so that we can reach the goal in 2 years. So it's not an easy goal, but it's a goal to which we are working in order to reach. The demand has been given to us, and it has to be met throughout the time that we have. In order to do so, we thought about a set of measures, of actions to reach the goal. One of them is related to the automation of the processes flows. Dr. Julia will give us a breakdown later on of what I'm talking about, but that is a necessity. Yesterday, we heard here that stuff about AI, automation, saying that they do not replace the professionals. They have their own expertise, but they can definitely use AI in order to make this work more agile, doing things at the INPI. The use of the AI tools in the filing process has been also introduced, and we are working to intensify the tools that might actually meet the needs of INPI and contribute to reaching the goal. So we know that there are some specificities that need to be met as well. It's not enough to just basically use ChatGPT and believe that the work is done. But we trust that we believe we've had opportunities, and I would like to emphasize the needs of partnerships, beginning with ABPI, so that they can also help us in this kind of assessment and technological demands in order to reach what we need. And Dr. Julio is trying to help us running all the tests with his team to see what indeed can meet fully the goal that we have. We have to widen our search databases, which is another concern that we have. We want them to be accessible, and I know what Julie is going to say, that we have to foresee the budget to fund these banks every year. It's not an investment that is going to happen only once. It's a need that is it's permanent. So, we have to be aware of this need, because these are actions that require sustainability throughout time. The reinforcement of the technical capabilities of IPI itself, we had a very long period where we didn't have any new employees. It was not different with INPI. It happened to all the federal institutions. And since the beginning of the year, we've had a follow-up from the Executive Secretariat based on the demands not only of MDIC, but also from its linked partners. And I would like to create a parenthesis here to say that our relationship with coordination and foresight with INPI includes the political strategic approach, not replacing the work of the Executive Secretariat in its role of coordinating and supervising administratively, and also dealing with the management of the INPI and other partners in the system, MDIC, which also leads to work that is a teamwork related to budget, to hiring new people, coordinating with MGI and the Ministry of Development, as well with the teams of the Executive Secretariat on a daily basis of the discussions. And of course that we have to reinforce the relevance of that from the political strategic point of view. Dr. Julio jokes with that. He says that I'm the one to solve the issue, our problems, but that's not true. I can't solve all of them. We do what we can, and where we can collaborate, we collaborate and we work very closely, which I believe to be something else that is important to mention. That also the discussion of management discussions and administrative discussions, they know the dimension of the repercussion of that in terms of deliveries, and we've been able to have an authorization to carry out new hirings with 120 new vacancies. And I know that Dr. Julie is going to say something about it later on. But of course, we know that this is not enough. This is not the number that we demanded. But for this moment, that's what we've been able to have in terms of authorization, and the Executive Secretariat and Administrator together with IMGI were able to do in terms of the authorization. And I would like, again, to create a parenthesis. If the world of IP, in your point of view, has many different insights that sometimes we are able to reach based on discussions that we have, for example, in GP, or the collection of subsidies and perceptions through social participation instruments, we also have an opportunity to share with you what is the formulation of a public policy, what is the search for scarce resources at the federal level, and what is the challenge of creating all this investment in terms of strategic needs, and that involve many different actors. And we have to think about the fight, so to speak, between the ministries. So we didn't have any new hirings in many different institutions, which is also a demand that has a backlog. And we have to think about the impact on the budget and the commitment towards the fiscal framework, which are variables that we have to take into consideration, with which we have to deal with, thinking about our demands. So we know, we are aware that 120 new employees is just the beginning so that we can contribute to reach the goal. But we still have more vacancies to be occupied so that we can provide the productivity and the projection that is expected to reach such goal, considering the projections for the future in terms of the increase in the number of filings, and also the results of our actions in terms of dissemination about the importance of the use of the protection of the copyright and IP. And still in the same topic, I would like to make comments about the commitments to the updating of some alterations, legislative alterations in those that seem to be necessary. One of those that has been raised in the realm of GP, and that very soon we'll have some discussions that will be open to collect subsidies, is a possible interaction of the article number 33, which can also reduce the time of patents in terms of filing, I believe. So we like to have the combination of Articles 33 and 32, as mentioned previously, in the realm of JEEP, again, when they approved some actions of the results of the 13 technical debates that were finalized. And many of you have direct interest in that, in the theme. And even if we don't have a specific date set yet to publishing the results, but we will do it eventually, and as soon as it is published, you should participate, you should contribute. You should contribute with the public subsidies, and that, differently from public consultation, it does not bring the normative act, but it brings a series of questions and issues that will be good in order to help the decision-making process to create a proposal, normative or legislative, for alterations. So it is an opportunity that is very important. And in one hand, at a certain point, I highlighted the IGP's role in terms of coordination. I would like to highlight as well, to emphasize the importance of having in Brazil the implementation of tools such as the public use of subsidies, so that we can hear about them. It would be great for us to have the possibility of meeting the demands and concerns of all. We don't have this possibility now, but we have the possibility of using the subsidies to contribute with that, going beyond the yes or no, but contributing with data, with your visions, points of view, in terms of what we have to consider and ponder in this process of decision making. And we also have, I still need a little bit more time, We have some public consultancies in terms of some specific rights, and also the possibility of how to deal with advertisement, and also again subsidies again with a system of collection of registries. That is all a result of the discussions that we had in the realm of GP. Well, still talking about our role and the contributions for the PI system, one of the most important topics, the dissemination of IP. We know that that is crucial for our economic development and sustainability, and it's been our priority, and now even more than ever. We have two axes in that related to the theme. One of them is with IP actions to create revenue, and axis number two for actions to disseminate information and capacity building in IP. So we have to bring these results of dissemination throughout time, contributing with the goals, the reaching of the goals, including the goals that are currently suggested or included in the pluriannual plan of the federal government, where we have included some of these commitments. There are 4 lines of priority actions that I will mention very briefly here. The first of them being related to the creation and capacity building of society in general about things related to IP. I mentioned previously, I did a spoiler about students, but we have other initiatives related to that. We've been talking a lot, and we're aligned, again, CPR as well as INPI, with this initiative of including in the rounds when it comes to education, different supports when it comes to the NCTs, so that we can integrate the ecosystems of industry and education. So these are ways that we thought, suggested together with the INPI, and some we are still tuning up with many different actors. But the idea is to see IP in a more concrete way when we talk about this fostering rounds. When it comes to sponsorships, we thought about including IP in the set of criteria for the granting of sponsorships, and also some criteria for productivity of researchers and professors, which is crucial. So we know that, and I will talk about the market again. We not only IP, but we also have to think about the applied knowledge for the industry and society. Development of content also is a basic principle. There is a platform from MEC, which is ABPI, that is precisely the project that we have begun talking about with the ministry, where INP is willing to help with capacity building of the professors in the public sphere, and new editions of the award IP in schools.
We've had very successful editions, and now we can spread it for technical schools, because we had some good results with the talks we had with people responsible for that in the technical schools. As to the marketplace, we have the missions of CNDI. We have to map the demand in the areas of Brazil, looking at CNDI, because all the directors are going to this sense. When we look at the mission of CNDI, or when we discussed in the government, the executive secretary of CNDI said that IP must be one of the tools to be explored. We must help them to identify how we are going to contribute, how we can put together the demand that we have for CNDI. Really, business rounds also supporting IP in its different aspects. We have to take this knowledge. We must have mentoring programs that INPI realizes is very important. And it says, let's make it bigger. And we have to balance that with the commitments we have to meet the demands and the deadlines. But this is a must for the user. And we have to be connected with ABPI, FINEP, all the agencies that can help us. And we need more concrete proposals because we have to convert the use of the financing with public monies to the agenda of IP. As a third item, is not number 3, but number 4. No, number 3. We have to promote sustainable businesses, matchmaking, and green technologies. We have a first phase with themes that are very important in the government agenda: renewable energies, intelligent agriculture, sustainable agriculture. We have had more than 100 rounds that were very successful. And one of the first talks that we had in MDIC that we promoted, it was the Secretariat of Competitiveness and also Green Economy. We didn't have a secretary, but we took the project of matchmaking because we thought it was very valuable to formulate these new policies of green economy. And the fourth line is to support the missions of CNDI. I say that I'm repeating myself like a broken record. But I think that is very important to be highlighted because we are going through a different moment at CNDI. We are going to have something ready next September or October, but in a qualitative way, we have to contribute to our agenda because this will leverage our demands and the understanding about the relevance of IP so that we can obtain the missions that we want to get. We have, in the case of GP, we have a technical group of intelligence in industrial property, and we have put there, it's available for CNDI, all the studies that we have. Some have already been finished, and they can subsidize the policies for industrial property. And we can have other studies to elaborate with our technical teams that are very competent. CNDI and the Secretariat of Industrial Development have talked to us about mapping the new technological tendencies and also the national productive capacity. We can contribute by uniting all these variables to design a new program of industrial policies. Here we have the missions listed. We have 6 missions, agro-industrial chains that are digital and sustainable to eradicate famine, resilient health complex, sustainable infrastructure to productive integration, digital transformation of the industry. We must have bioeconomics and critical technologies for the sovereignty and national defense. When you look at the missions, perhaps that's not very concrete at a first glance, but what is concrete has to come below those missions. Each agency that participates in CNDI and those who are going to be invited to contribute have to look at these missions and ask themselves, what can I do so that those missions are fulfilled? And this is our role. This is our role as society, and that's the role of the productive sector and the different stakeholders and actors in the case of IP. It is our job to contribute to building the basis of the new industrial policies of this country, looking at social equality, inclusion, well-being, job generation to our society, and generation of income to all Brazilians. And I end, and I would like to end by saying that it's not a trivial mission. So we need the contribution of everybody. And this is going through the discussions we have at GP and of public consultations in the continuity of the work within our GP. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm available for everybody. You have the email of GP that everybody knows. It's on the screen. I am the president and head of the executive secretariat. And I give the floor to our colleagues at the head table. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Juliana. We are very glad to hear about such interesting projects that are ongoing. Probably you don't know, and you don't have to know, 60 years of history of ABPI. We always give our opinion, even before there was a public consultation. We have seen a healthy enlargement of the participation of civil society and the government. This is a demonstration of strength in the democratic institutions in Brazil. Our participation has been growing over those 60 years, and I have to acknowledge that we have in this plenary, which is totally new, we have, besides Dr. Julio, our current president, two former presidents, Jorge Ávila, and also I acknowledge here our friend, Dr. Cláudio Furtado, who was the previous president. So intellectual property has to be a policy of state, not of government. We have been participating enthusiastically with GP. Dr. Natalia, the coordinator in the ministry, is also in the audience. And so these themes of public hearings, we are going to work with them. And usually in ABPI, we understand that it is necessary to change the legislation to reduce the deadlines. 1996 is not justifiable anymore at 2023, and we have to debate that to see which should be the best deadline. But I missed Dr. Juliana, but perhaps it's there. But I would like to reiterate, because this is a demand from our ABPI, is to reduce the deadline from 5 years to 3 years. Our law is TRIPS plus. We don't need 5 years if you are not using the brand for 3 years. So this brand is not using its social function. And within the same line, we also propose the fact that you should periodically declare the use of the brand that already exists in Argentina, Mexico, the US. It's not the proof of use, because this will demand an examination of INPI, because this is too much effort. But just the fact that you have to present a statement saying that you are using the brand after 5 years and at each prorogation to avoid the dead wood. That is the accumulation of trademarks that are registered but not used. And so they are an obstacle to new brands and new innovations. I asked Dr. Julio we have more than 3 million registered trademarks in Brazil, 300,000 per year. If we don't modernize the law to give space for new brands and new creators, we can say that we have variations that are infinite. No, but human cognition needs brands that needs a new understanding. So I think that in public hearings, we have to think about these deadlines. Thank you once again. Dr. Eduardo, please present our new speaker. Thank you. I would like, first of all, to say it's a pleasure for me to participate in a panel with two of the most important authorities in Brazil that formulate and execute the policies of industrial property in Brazil, and also with my president, Gabriel. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm very honored. I'd like to highlight that the theme, the connection, that is the main theme that are part of our Congress, is connection of IP and social inequality. It's very current. We fight for that all over the world and mostly in Brazil. Brazil is one of the 3 biggest agro countries in the world, but we have food insecurity, and the responsibility is not due to the protection of IP, and that if we avoid that, it would improve the scenario. The most developed countries in the world, they have very solid structures of protection, and they foster innovation in their countries. Can we do that in Brazil? Yes, we can. There's negotiation, there's transfer of technology, there's NITI, and we can adopt that, and we can change our picture of being so full of inequality. Dr. Julio, before being president of INPI, he was known to all of you. He has been working very hard to improve industrial property in Brazil. Because of his great knowledge, he should be president of INPI. Congratulations, Julio. His CV is very long. Dr. Julio César Castelo Branco Reis Moreira is the president of INPI. He was director of administration for 5 years until January this year, director of patents for 7 years. He worked in different functions in INPI. I'm not going to read everything. He has a very academic, important knowledge also, and I'll give the floor because it's Julio who we want to hear. Thank you for your kind words. And let's change places here because I have to read my slides. Thank you. Good morning. First of all, Gabriel, we have brilliant minds on the stage here, but Gustavo is correct. I would like to acknowledge all our colleagues who are here, Dr. Jorge Avila, who used to be president of INPI, and of course, he was able to contribute to improve our path. Since the first time we started. And this process of improvement is not going to finish with me, but I hope to contribute so that INPI can come to an even better level.
I'd like to congratulate our colleagues who are working remotely, because I think we should show the effort, the capacity, and the commitment of our colleagues together in this improvement process. As Juliana said, she spoke a little bit about everything, but I would like to repeat some of what she said, that as an institution related to the execution of IP policies, at the end of the day, it gets to us at the INPI the problems that have to be solved, those that effectively cause some issues on the market, and that we as the executive body have to deal with. So I'm going to give you just a high-level idea of what's going on, not before saying that when you will see on the slides, I was invited to go to Brazil by the vice president and the ministry. The vice president, Mr. Alckmin, he called me and said, "And so what?" I said, "I'm fine, and you?" So when are you, what's the deadline of the 2 years? And it was like, "What do you mean?" So he said, I said INPI is going to solve patents in 2 years. But I said, "As of?" And then he looked at me and he said, "What do you mean?" So the truth of the matter is, if we are going to do things at the pace we have currently, we're going to have the patent 2 years after the filing, which means 5 years, which means that as well as we perform, we are not going to have the adequate pace. So you can say, well, but you have priorities of all kinds of things. We do, but that's a fraction of what the Institute can do. So if we think about a panel, the panel includes patents. So just to give an idea, when I say 2 years as of the filing, it is just to make it more clear to those people who had not understood it adequately. But obviously, after the registry of the filing, when it is presented to the INPI, where we have the possibility of doing some action, making some action in regard to that. So we have to improve the processes, the speed of the assessment, the improvement of the tools, outsourced search. So all those aspects that have to be taken into consideration when we talk about productivity. When it comes to brands, it's the opposite. So we have just a provision of 450,000 brands, and we have a decision capacity of about half of it, 250,000. So we try to hire 100 people, but we got only 40. So that helps, but it doesn't solve the problem. I do not have at INPI the number of vacancies that is enough to hire more than 48 people to deal with the brands. So I have by a presidential degree that specific number so that I can hire some people related to technology. The solution for that is to try to think about out of the box, to try to find some alternative that will allow me to allow INPI. And while that doesn't happen, while we cannot create more vacancies, while we cannot take care of the 450,000 brands, we need to have a mechanism that can facilitate a faster assessment and having the grant of a brand more quickly. So basically what we are trying to do is to create legal alterations so there are some patents with brands, because we believe that we need to review them in more details when it comes to IP. Nobody is trying, or better saying, INPI exists to grant those rights. And that is something that Jorge Avila said, one of the first speeches when he got here. INPI exists to do grants. And I stopped to think about it. If we didn't need to do that, there wouldn't be the need of INPI. And that's the truth. We have to grant the patents. So we have to understand that the deadlines that are given to expediting the registry of the brand, within the legislation, what does it do? So why would you have a denied brand or a patent? That's not going to happen. So there's no sense in making them pay for an extra patent if they have one already. So when it comes to brands, it's the same thing. Why am I going to enforce the fee to keep the registry? If you have your brand already, you have the grant already. Now let's talk about stuff that we have to align. Here's our reality in Brazil right now, and then we compare to other people, other countries, as well as internally. We have a great volume of brands, 450,000, as I said, a volume that is up 12% in the last 3 years, 30, 20%, which is something that is really growing. And when we deal with dissemination and the mentorship program of the INPI that is focused on expediting the startups and micro companies, which is a program that we have in partnership with Sebrae, one of the first things that we have to do is teach them, talk about anything but brands. Brands, not now. Leave it as it is because it is good. So if you include more brands, we're going to have a problem. And that is something that's been growing. This interest is very clear to us, and brands, year after year, they have a growth rate that is incredible. And patents, not the same. We have a stagnation, and we have to think about this problem. One of the problems underlying is, it goes through what I'm showing here. Let's see, ranking, parity of the consumption power. So as an economy, we are on the 8th rank, and in terms of IP, 47th. So that's a discrepancy in this process. How can we create an equilibrium? We need to incentivize filings internally. We have a lot of foreign filings. So we want the foreign companies to do business in Brazil, of course, but we also need to reinforce the internal aspect and the competency and the capacity of generating technology internally. So what is our main objective within INPI? Agility and quality in the grant of IPs, of patents for IPs, whether it's an industrial design, a brand, or patent, or a computer software, whatever it is within INPI, we want quality and efficiency. And then there is an important aspect that, based on the numbers that we have, we observe that there's a necessity in the situation that we have currently to have a institutional quality program, which is a model that we are implementing, and at the end of the year, we're going to have the first assessment of the quality fund, national fund, to guarantee that the process of INPI are well mapped, well structured, so that we can do stuff quickly in all their phases, their steps. So we are going to hire people, as Juliana said. So for the first time, we had a warning not a warning. We were communicated about it like a month or 2 months ago. So our average of hiring process is of about 6 months when everything goes well. So we've been able to improve that a little bit. We've been able to, for example, create an integration between planning, budget, and qualification, so that we can tell the government when we need 90 million, we want 90 million because we can use it properly. So it's a public fund, it's scarce, it could be used some other areas, but we also need it, and we are planning to use what we need, even though we raised 800 million this year. We're asking for 90 million, which is what we believe will give us capacity to do our planning of reaching 2026 with a 2-year time as of the filing for the granting of the patent and a month for brands. And quality is one of the differentiators. We are mobilizing people to do that. We are proposing a review of the LPI, a certain number of articles to expedite the processing time. We know what is difficult sometimes. We know the issues that we face, and we believe that we have within this government now an adequate scenario, environment to do this. And I believe that in my experience within INPI, I don't believe that I lived a moment like this with different ministries, with interests that are segmented, but speaking so closely one to each other, working so close to each other with the same purpose, whether we're talking about health or the treasury or finance. They all talk about establishing a program, and they say that our vision is crucial so that we can have a business environment within IP being valued as it should be in our country. Automation is part of this process. With brands, we have 100% of automation. In fact, we have demand that with our partners in this process of brands. So in this process, they're helping us with the development of IBAs. IBAs in Brazil is not the same thing that it is for other countries. We are a little bit more advanced. So that has a cost, operationally speaking, and that has, we have these new hirings. We are receiving 40 people related to support area, including 16 in IT to develop our structure to provide support to IBAs, doing the finalization of automation for brands, so that we can finish also automation for IDI because of the Hague Protocol, so that we can have more time to finish the automation process when it comes to patents. We are in the middle of the road now. We are finalizing the assessment patent flow that is going to improve our behavior, lowering our lack of quality in this process. It is going to lower the time that includes rework, because we don't have a process that is automated and well directed. So this service, I believe, is going to improve the quality of what INPI can do. There's something that I would like to talk to you about that I forgot, which is the interaction process. We're going to talk to you with a first study this year with a hired company, outsourced in this case, to assess how we deal, what we have in terms of inefficiency, and what we can improve. Gabriel spoke a little bit about the deadwood, which is a concern of ours. So, but just so you know, if it is going to take me more time to verify that deadwood is present, I'm not going to do it. First, I want to solve the problem. So we need a form. So we don't need to, we can do it electronically, send information and ask information. So we have to think about it in a pragmatic way at this moment. But we want to hear you, and suggestions are more than welcome in this process. So for those who work with INPI for a while, they know that is true. We want to hear you and understand your pains and know what's not working. So we had a conversation not too long ago with people from ABPI, with Ghizzi and Álvaro, and they said to us, well, when it comes to resources, we have a good number of processes related to patents that are reaching 20 years old. So we looked at their faces and we said, what's the number? And I have to track that. And we saw that the number is not big, but it's enough to cause discomfort. In 249,000 requests that are taking between 15 and 20 years for patents. It's not a crazy number, but it's a number that bothers me because effectively the decision-making time is computed, is considered including the decisions made in the second administrative term of the company. And now we are beginning to work with that mapping processes, there's a company that is of good quality working with us. We are reviewing the criteria that are applied today by the administrative department, and then the way it is now, we are taking almost 5 years to decide a registry of a brand or a patent. That's unacceptable. That means that basically I'm going to have double the number of staff working in technical departments in order to do the assessment of resources and quality as it is done today. So I have to duplicate the number of people so that I can meet the demand. So we have to think about it again in a pragmatic way. So we want to hear you. That is important to us. We have to have the priority exams. So next year we're going to do that. The idea of INPI has always been to prioritize anything at any moment as long as the plaintiff requests that. Today, do we have the capacity of doing that? No, we don't. So we have little time. I think it was a year ago, an interesting case, which was priority when it comes to telecommunications, and in the first week it was about 600 vacancies, and in a week they were gone. And then the plaintiff complained to us, and I said, well, you guys included those 600 vacancies. We have a capacity, a work capacity, and we established at INPI that about 20% of the capacity is for priorities, and the other priorities, they're not really used. They're basically focused on national questions or to those companies that decide to do their first investment in IP in Brazil. So if you think about any kind of priority when it comes to that aspect, INPI is going to grant it, whether it's a green patent for renewable energies or when it comes to health or financing, public funding. So there are a series of options, and we have a preliminary opinion about some patents that are not public. Nobody uses that in Brazil. It's something that would be examined by INPI within the secret phase, and that could have some moderations without being published. So the information would still be kept secret. And we have to teach people about that, how to use the system in an adequate way, because it makes a difference, and I'm going to show it to you at the end. Something else is we are thinking about regional integration. We understand that as a tool that is crucial that we can strengthen in Brazil the negotiation forums. At the same time, we have a better understanding of the region and how to work with it. So we are focusing right now in the Mercosul region without forgetting about other areas like the Americas and also other countries that speak Portuguese as well, and we're working together with them to promote PI.
Now, in this area, we have substitute legacy systems. We have to harmonize the conversation and accelerate the process. We have the collocation system. All the systems are in this system, and we have to go and migrate to the cloud. What are we going to invest? And we have to make viable the model of contingency and redundancy, because this is critical. Although we have a safe system, we must have other elements so that we can talk to our friends in China and have a Chinese base in Brazil and also an European basis in Brazil. We must have our own structure without having to pay additional money and having our own documents of INPI. Solutions for AI also we should implement. It's also applied to brands and patents, and that's the way to go. And we have to digitalize our collection. of documents. We haven't been able to do that yet and put everything in the hands of society, but it is part of our commitment to do that. These are our boss talking about 2 years to reduce. From the filing of the patent, we have to have 2 years, and we have 4.5 years from the start. Our goal was 6.3, and we are 4 now. But the boss said we must have 2 years. When you file a patent, you have 2.8 years to require an examination. But now we have to shorten that for 2 years from the moment you file a patent. Now we have 2 general tools. In yellow, this evaluation is innocuous. The results have been insufficient. The green area is the good area, 30% of interesting results. If we look at images on your right, you see that the green area has grown. So we have a promising area that is the search for brands by image. If we think about figurative brands, we can go to also patents in the areas of mechanics and others, and we gain in terms of production. As for nominative search, the yellow has grown, so we are not doing so well. We are evaluating the process. We have other tools that we are looking for, like a whip that we want to bring to Brazil. I have asked Mr. João Negrão, and I asked him for his basis. And the performance of the tool is still below what is ideal, but we want to have a better performance using artificial intelligence. And we have a plan to combat backlog. We have been successful. Now we are working with 4.5 years. It was a persistent process. It wasn't easy at all. It started in 2018, but it started really in 2016 with the program of home office, remote work that increased productivity. The result was good, but our team was very tired. So we don't have the backlog that we have from 2000 to 2016, but now we cannot use other results. So the examiner has to start from the beginning, and we have to allow the examiner, when he looks at new technology, he must to be trained to do that. And our team as at the INPI is of older people, and they have to be updated. They have to understand the new technologies, and this makes a difference in their production capacity, because sometimes you stay there with 8 hours, 12 hours a day looking at the same thing, and this is difficult. So we must give our colleagues new conditions and train them to be able to understand the new technologies. And so this is a major effort. Otherwise, our production drops. We reduced the patents. We reduced also the brands. But this is a necessary phase, and it's a situation that we are facing. And we have to implement a quality team within INPI. We are starting a pilot plan this year to improve that. And we have to harmonize the first and the second instance. We have had changes in positions. As to the judiciary system, you know that we are also dealing with them. We want to help them to take better decisions for us. We are at the federal sphere. I talked to Dr. Cavalieri from the federal sphere, but we also have to change the state sphere because it's not adequate, but it's part of the game. And there is a breach there. There is a gap. We are representing a company. Let's do what we can do, but we have to look what is happening, and we have to correct our route. Within the national scenario, we have 74% in the national PCT, 71% non-resistant, and 3.2% that hasn't changed in the last years. So we want to increase the activities, make our actors more sensitive to what is happening, making a partnership with the Secretariat and the Ministry. It's a good partnership that is very strong, so that we can put whatever is national within the PCT. And what is your demand? The demand, I don't to file new models in Brazil. I want new patents, national patents, to be filed. This is our goal. But you ask yourself, why am I going to pay more? So we say, we have to restructure yourself. Most of the files go to ICPI, and people don't have the money to do that. We do have universities with capacity to have technological development, but the universities think about the problem, create a solution, and then go to the market to discover who is interested. And this is, we have to make universities and companies work together. This is part of the process, to use the scarce resources we have to have better results. This is the flow of PCP. I'm not going to explain it. If I have a patent after 2 years of filing, that's great. And we have CNDI. If you read, you have IP in everything. Even in agro-industry, we have IP involved. Can be a small increment. It can be a greater invention, but the industrial policy of this country goes through the protection of industrial and intellectual property. This is a must. Whenever one of these policies is put into action and it doesn't work, it's my fault. We have 106 billion between FINEP and other agencies to invest in this area. My idea was, if we have public monies coming in, let's do what other people are doing. If the public money come, it's for research and development. The first filing of IP must be in Brazil, because then we foster people to use our system in Brazil. We are competent in brands. We are in all international treaties. We know the discussion at the EU and the Mercosur, and we know that the process should go on. The government has to invest money to develop technologies that are of its interest. Well, I want to invest in semiconductors. So invest money to do that. Let's put companies to do that. We have the capacity to do that, but we must have a structured plan to act like that. And I think that this slide is for us to end up a false dichotomy. It's not Brazil against the world. We are all together on the same boat, irrespective of what we say, irrespective of what we understand that bilateral relationships are very strong. And we are within this area. We are at the same level of the best actors. We want to have previsibility. I have the case of the norm of biotech. The discussion was isolate or not isolate. And people who came to us say, it doesn't matter what you do, but you must do something, because we are stuck for 6 months. Do something, but indicate me the way to go so that I can defend myself. Does it make a difference or not? So we took away the isolate. This is previsibility, to make clear to you what actions we will take as to your filing for brands and patents. And judicial security is something very important. We have a new court specialized in that, and we must have this all over Brazil, not only in Rio. We have to think about the regional areas and how can we make the regionals of INPI in all of Brazil. In Goiânia, we have 6 people taking care of the rest of the country. We must find alternatives. Remote work can be an alternative. People who come to discuss with us what is the model, and to put a regional in each state of Brazil is something that's not feasible. But we must say we are going to have an INPI regional one. Where shall we have its headquarters? We are part of all those agreements, TRIPS Plus, and all the others that are listed there. Higher, Lisbon. This affects us in Brazil and when we go outside Brazil. And we must have knowledge, development in the economical and social areas are very important. I'm almost finished, but the right of property is not something in itself. It's just a step in a process. But if we not take care of it, it will make a difference in negotiations. What we say in the CNPC, we have an IPI working very stringently. We talk about piracy, and we deal with that the same way that they say that we have to combat piracy in Brazil. We also suffer piracy abroad. So our vision must be not only internal, but also external. We have to protect the national companies so that we can act in the world market. Then we have a dichotomy. What is good? What is bad? Everybody is after the money. You are involving business. Everybody wants to make money. If you have an investment, you want a return on your investment. So we are very sensitive about that. We understand that some points are not good. We try to correct it, but we are not going against anyone. We want to have a strong system so that everybody can profit. And we have had some actions, compulsory license. The U.S. uses compulsory licensing. How can we do that? It's a legal thing in the Brazilian law system. We have also PTA. First, we have to calibrate the system, then we think about the PTA. PTA today, although it's a demand from outside to inside the internal industry, will also demand PTA. The third time of decision in 2 years, pharmacochemicals or biopharmaceuticals are also important. We are making an effort to have a new pharmacochemical, a new molecule. And biopharmaceuticals are the way to go because we have biodiversity there. I was in Costa Rica. I saw a small toad, a very nice one. I put it on my hand, and there was another one that was black and white. And they said, no, don't put your hand there because it is poisonous. The poison that cures is the same that kills. So this is a way of exploring new horizons. What is a discovery? What is an invention? What can we protect? What we can't protect? INPI is the executor organism. But we suffer. We don't consider invention or discovery. If we do research, you discover something, you bring to the lab, and you do more research, find a new substance, and you put it on the market. And then you can commercialize the product. We have to stop and think about how we are going to see our law. We have transgenic microorganisms. I have some worm that can, for instance, on the earth, this worm could eat oil, but if you put it in the lab, it dies. Nobody knew about that because after researching, and if you transfer the worm from its natural environment, it dies. It's not a discovery. It's a fact. You can protect transgenic microorganisms that are not a new discovery. When I was a researcher, there is in the law that says that is not significant. In Article 18, you say, what is the difference between discovery and mere discovery? And to find a solution is very difficult. We are investing, we are putting money in the Amazon. We want biotechnology, biodiversity. We want to be different in the world vis-a-vis this question. For instance, a plant can produce insulin, and you reduce the price from 40%. So, with a small plant today, it's a cártamo, can produce insulin. This for me is very interesting because many people, many companies are investing to produce insulin because it is important to diabetics. And we look at Brazil. It's called Hylia. It's a startup. Someone discovered that ibogaina, that comes from a plant called iboga. In Africa, to produce that, he takes the plant, cuts the root, and extracts ibogaine. that blocks neurotransmitters. It combats the vice for its drug addiction. So it's used against smoking and other drugs. It inhibits your wish to use drugs. So this person is using a natural resource. He is in the Amazon right now and discovered that. Now the federal government prohibit that. The startup received money from the government to do this research, to conduct that. So he has to file the patent, but he won't win. He has the name of Hylia, and he's going to leave Brazil, because in Brazil he won't be able to do that. So we must think about alternatives, how we can make it feasible to develop this kind of culture, because people like that make a difference. We see that the system works and thus you have results, and that's the plant. And people say that it can, don't do anything because it's going to kill you. That's the same discussion we have about cannabis in Brazil. It can be used in the textile industry, in the pharmaceutical industry. Because it's cannabis, aren't we going to talk about that? Well, I think my time is up. Thank you.
Não só elogiar, né?
I would like to congratulate you on this very extensive dance presentation, defending, creating advocacy in a very strong way when it comes to protection of IP. So I think that it leaves all of us very glad and very excited about the future. And in those more controversial topics, we left it open for discussion, for democracy, so that we can build together those changes as well. So congratulations, Julio, a wonderful presentation. President, the floor is yours. Thank you. I can't miss the opportunity to say that Julio's presentation was wonderful, but I would also like to make it clear that for many years ABPI is favorable to the creation of a compulsory method that every time that there is the Brazilian government money, the patent has to be filed in Brazilian Portuguese. And a lot of countries do that. I'm not making it up. I'm not creating something new. We always say that it's horrible when there is something that is only new in Brazil. We follow that maxim that the only good thing that starts in Brazil is the fruit jabuticaba. And everything else we have to think that in the rest of the world, people have developed similar systems. So this idea that the first filing has to be in the country that financed it is absolutely logical and reasonable, and we will definitely support that. We have space, we have a little bit of time for maybe 2 or 3 questions, short questions, tops. And I know that a lot of people would like to ask questions. So do we have a mic for the audience? Okay, so first of all, Dr. Marcia Nunes, our dear federal judge, and a reference when it comes to IP. Thank you, Gabriel. In fact, it's a suggestion, actually, aligned with what you mentioned regarding the fact that people have to declare that they use the brand. I think that there should also be the declaration of the activity, so which is saying that it's currently accepted in the renewal of the brand. But I think that this deadline should also be shortened. And also, when it comes to modernization, as Julio mentioned, bring more about our experience, because in our system currently, when it comes to justice that we use in the second region, which is IPROC, it is completely related to the federal revenue. So if a person dies, the name of the person becomes red. So I know that the person passed away. And a company as well, if there is some sort of change in the company, I click automatically and I can see automatically new data of that if that would also be really important if API if INPI could create some automation with the Federal Revenue Department and create some partnerships together with the commerce chambers of commerce, so that we could align all the information, so that we can do follow-ups when there's a change of activity or something of that sort. You were absolutely right. Have you heard about Informe-se? I doubt you have never heard about that, right? It's the database of the INPI patent. It is something that nobody else in the world uses it. So we have only one person who understands about it there. So we have to migrate it to a new system so that we can do this kind of negotiation. So we want more than anything else to create our database available for federal police or federal revenue, so that we can have this kind of activation helping in this process, including the judiciary. So this is one of the steps. So we need to have money to do that. I need to have time as well to have brands that will provide information that is within Oracle, and that is going to take 5 years with dedicated people to do the migration. So that is a lot of effort, and patent is going to be the same thing. It's not something that happens immediately, but we have that as a goal. I would also believe that it's interesting to have this complementation of information between the judiciary and INPI, so that when the patent or brand or whatever are judicialized, that could also be automatically done. That would also be interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Massa. Anybody else? Marinello, is that you? Yeah. Okay, Dr. Marinello. Good morning. Congratulations. We had great presentations. The Dr. Julio's presentation, Juliana's presentation. I'm really excited, mainly when it comes to what you mentioned, the connection between bioeconomy and innovation and IP. My question is the following. How can you, representatives of the government, how do you believe that all of these things might be connected? Because we see a lot of initiatives nowadays, not only in INSTI, but also the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of International Trade, and International Affairs, all of them talking about that. We even have a Green Secretariat specifically to talk about stuff like that. So how I mean, the idea is great, but if there's no, at some point, something that unites and connects everybody, there might be a loss of efficiency. How does the government see that? Dr. Julia? Well, in CNDI, all these bodies are working together so that the programs can have synergy. So all the government bodies are debating this together about, including the Executive Secretariat, which is also involved with MCTIC. So that's one of the ways we can do that. The same thing with the fund source. So the idea is to create indeed an integration so that we can have an optimization of the results. So both the presence of the representatives in the high level as well as in the technical level are guaranteed in CNI. Louis, I'm going to make it very clear to you. That's what we always say at the Institute, that IP is not a federal government body, it's a state level body. So we have to deal with different governments with a structured way, create solutions for this phase that we are going through right now, which is very enriched right now. We have to create ways, and I don't know how to do that because I'm an executor, to establish a policy that is sustainable and lasts for the country. Otherwise, we're going to have this problem forever. I can have a guarantee today that I will not have any more because there will be a new administration. So I'm going to have to spend 6 months of my life doing that again. And I say that I have to go after money to be able to do things, and that's not feasible. We're going to have 2 more questions, and that's it. Okay? It's going to be Dr. Luisa Giga, former president of ABPI, and then Dr. Jorge Avila, former president of INPI. I would also like to make a comment. Our concern that Marinello expressed is very intense, and when it comes to this articulation in favor of the economic and sustainable productivity. I talked about that in my talk yesterday. And to those who don't know, the judiciary community saw in recent weeks the trial of the constitutionality of the competency of city and bio, because the PGR filed a lawsuit in 2006. It was judged now without an unanimous result, and the STF considered that to be a constitutional law. So this kind of crazy situation of judiciary and safety doesn't make any sense. Dr. Juliana, please give us some great insights. Well, now I'm shy. I would like to congratulate everyone for their presentations. They were all very interesting. But my question is for Julio. Julio, I have an objective question. Within the new hirings that will take place soon, we all hope, the Directory for Patent has areas where the speed is really good and we all consider excellent. But there are other areas within the same Board of Directors of Patent that the speed of the assessments remains very slow. My question is, within the examiners that are being hired for the Board of Directors for Patents, what's the percentage will be focused on the very slow areas that I've just mentioned? All of them have to telecommunications and computer science, and have for biotech and molecular. So every 2020, there are only 4 divisions that will be focused. The other 16, we're doing well already. And in 6, we're doing great. So we're not talking about a fake fact, but it's true. And this year, we're going to get even closer to what we want. If we do what we agreed, next year we're going to have another 120, the year after next, more 120 new hirings, and then we can end up having quality and excellence in this new term. My question is related to the question about bioeconomy. This is a problem that is not only in Brazil. I think that South America and the African continent as a whole, but our neighborhood mainly, our neighboring countries mainly, I think it would be really interesting to invest with those countries, not only limited to Mercosul. We have to bring this discussion to the whole continent. Jorge Avila, you want to destroy my life, right? So we've been doing that, but we are focusing, because of the effort from INPI to do the things that we have to do, we are reaching Mercosul first. So we're waiting for the situation to get solved in Argentina. I'm going to Uruguay next month. We're going to go to Paraguay as well with the new president, Claudia. So we're going to deal with Mercosul first, and then we're going to expand to Latin America and the Caribbean, because the Prosul will be resuscitated. We're going to have the integration brand project. We're going to have another one for patents, and we want to do IG as well. And IG has a very interesting situation, because our colleague from Uruguay brought this idea of creating an IG that is national, not only having those just in the frontiers. So what is, thinking about the production of a certain good, and that should be included in 2 countries in the frontier area. So, for example, we have IG between Uruguay and Brazil, and that is going to be thought to the other regions. So the idea is to strengthen integration. I think that when it comes to bioeconomy, it is discussion of sustainable use of biodiversity. I think that ITCA could be a good partner. Jorge, I agree and disagree at the same time. In the specific case of bioeconomy, Brazil has always looked for standing out in some biological area, and we have the possibility of leading that, whether with the economy itself or with renewable energies. So we're going to start alone, and others will follow suit. I believe that as a country, what we have available is enough for us to be the leadership in the world when it comes to that aspect, for the decarbonation and some critical issues that are contemporary. So we have the possibility of having a good decision-making process, and we can do that as a country if we have the sensibility of not losing sight of the situation. Dr. Juliana, Dr. Julio, thank you so much for accepting the invitation of ABPI, and I'd like to thank the participation of all of you. You might be thinking it's a little weird because for many years we talk at ABPI so very often about the financial autonomy of ABPI. We'll keep talking about that. We're dealing with it. We're working on it, as you could hear during Dr. Julio's speech, and the importance of sustainability, and we totally believe in the current administration, in the leadership of the Vice President, Mr. Alckmin, and that genuinely has a concern of capacitation of INPI, and with all due respect to the current leaders in the government and in the administration, the concern that we have is not only for the next 3 years, 7 years, it's for the next 60 years. And we have to guarantee sustainability, financially speaking, with the INPI. And it will most likely in the future receive our emails where we are going to show the developments of our constant battle. We are now going to have a coffee break at 11:30 on the dot. Please be punctual because we're not going to be late. We're going to have 3 simultaneous panels in the same room. Everybody's going to have to wear the translation devices, or even if you don't need translation, because it's going to be a silent room. So you need to have the device. And you can choose whatever panel you want to watch. We're going to talk about competitiveness and AI. And at 12:30, for those who applied, who registered, we're going to have lunch with Minister Alberto Barroso. And to those who did not register, we're going to have lunch right outside the room, okay, on the same flight. So everybody's going to be fed. Don't worry about it.